This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Big win. Still not getting the love from the media that we should. I'm ready to debunk some of that here later today and talk about this pretty fun and exciting game, man. This might have been the most fun I've had watching another opponent here so far this season, because I've been dying to watch Kaiir. Haven't had a chance to really get into it or watch any of the stuff live. So excited to have watched him. And obviously, I'm a big Budda Baker fan. So fun week to prep for a team.
Yeah, we'll get into it here in a minute. I think arguably maybe the two most fun quarterbacks in the NFL to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, tonight presented by our sponsors over at Uncle Jumbo's. Appreciate all their help and fun. Make sure you're checking them out at UncleJumbosDistillery.com. For tonight, we are joined by our special guest, Ed Smith. Ed, how we doing?
Gentlemen, great to be here. Looking forward to hashing this game out with you guys, man. It's going to be one of the best ones of the weekend.
Absolutely. I got to say, as we were prepping for the show and I was going through and looking through your background, I knew a little bit about you, but I didn't realize the connections with your family through the NFL. You got your nephew rolling here and enjoying watching. So for anyone who doesn't know, Ed actually started out as being drafted by the White Sox and as playing baseball. And maybe before the Antonio Gates and the different guys converting over, you just decided to follow your brother and be like, I think I can play football too, and made it all the way to the NFL. Not many people can pull that off.
No, and another kind of interesting tidbit, Greg, I actually spent part of my last baseball season, I was with the Buffalo Bison back in 95. So I do have a connection to you guys up there and how cold it can be, even in April, trying to play baseball, bro.
No, that's fantastic. I know you got a lot of good things going on. Tell the people where they can find your work and some of the good things you have going.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'm on every week on the BLEAV podcast kind of platform. My partner, Javon Adams, and I, we do the BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals podcast. We also do a live show every Saturday from 10 to 12 out here in Phoenix on KDUS 1060 AM. It's a 2-hour show from 10 a.m. our time till noon. That show's been going great for over 3.5 years now. So, and then I get the opportunity to do great shows like yours every week, popping in and talking about Cardinals and our next upcoming opponents. So I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. We appreciate you coming on. And we'll jump into, our traditional show of getting into specifics on each side of the ball. But could you just kind of give us a general idea? We're a little over here halfway through the season, a general idea of how the season's gone so far to the Cardinals, what the fans' expectations were going into the season, and if they've met the expectations or are exceeding it, and kind of how that fan base feels about your team right now.
It's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Our expectations weren't big out here in terms of being in this division. We kind of think it's the best division in the NFL right now. All 4 teams above 500, at least were above 500. San Francisco struggling, but we came into the season thinking this would be a season of growth, not necessarily having aspirations of playoffs or anything like that. And then, the Cardinals jump right out. They beat the 49ers first week of the season, another couple other impressive wins. But then we lose games that we're, should be winning. Like Detroit comes in, takes one from us. We go to Carolina, minus McCaffrey, we lose one. Then this past weekend, we let a young rookie second starting quarterback, second game starting quarterback come in here and take one from us in Miami. So it's been a little up and down, but at 5-3, how could we complain? I think we're still growing. Got some tough games coming ahead of us, but with the, possibility of playoffs looming, we'll see where we go. But, as far as expectations, I've always kind of kept them tempered. I know, a few weeks ago, everybody was thinking playoffs and possibly Super Bowl. And I'm like, look, slow your roll. We got to, crawl, walk, run. So, we're trying to keep them level-headed out here, but each game we win, we get a little more nostalgic about what could be. Every game we lose, it's like the sky is falling. So we're just trying to find a happy medium in between.
Sounds a lot like Buffalo.
Yeah.
Very, very, very similar. Yeah.
A lot of similarities.
After every loss, everything is horrible. After every win, it's Super Bowl. We got it's funny. And I will say, we were talking pre-show. We'll start with the offense a little bit here. It's really interesting how similar these teams are in the way that they're building around a young quarterback and how they're approaching it. So when you're talking about the Cardinals offense, the Bills are excited about a new young thriving quarterback who's a dual threat. They have a left tackle that they drafted and extended. They have a right tackle that's playing really well on a value contract. They traded for a number one target this offseason. It applies to both teams. It's really interesting. What have you seen as far as how Kyler's taken advantage of adding a target like DeAndre Hopkins and the domino effect that has on the other weapons?
Well, really pleasant surprise. When we got DeAndre Hopkins, man, it was like finding money in your pocket after, washing, some jeans or something like that. It was, I can't. The feeling when I heard about that trade and what we were giving away and what we were getting back in return is almost like, wait a minute, are you serious? And then, we get into the season, and initially I think Kaiir has been using DeAndre somewhat as like that security blanket. Constantly some of the numbers have been a little skewed in terms of targets, and it almost seems like, DeAndre's been the only wide receiver out there. But I think the last couple of weeks, by necessity and in another way by being forced to do it, and I'll explain that real quick, he's had to actually go to some of his other weapons and use them by necessity because other teams are rolling coverages to DeAndre now, trying to take him away, and you can't force it. We see in other situations like in Cleveland with Beckham and Baker. You can't force it too much. It becomes unnatural. So I think he's learning that kind of on the fly, which is a great thing. It's only going to help his maturity as a quarterback, but it is always so good, man, when you can have a DeAndre Hopkins as a fallback on those games when he's going to show out. So, it's everything from our offense to defense, special teams. Everything's a work in progress, but when you have a weapon like DeAndre, it makes it so much easier to kind of get things rolling.
So, and I know obviously protecting somebody like Kaiir is different than protecting the old school Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, where, the offensive line knew their spot and you just had to protect the spot. He's going to save you in some instances where he can get out of pressure, but he's also going to move where, you didn't realize you needed to keep your guy away from that area because he's already rolled out of the pocket. I know that it seems like, DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum are names that people are familiar with, but how is the interior of that line doing as far as holding up to allow the threat of rushing and to keep Kaiir upright to put up some of the numbers that he is?
You're especially right in the terms that with a quarterback like Kaiir, he can sometimes, I guess, make some of the moles disappear. It's almost like putting a little lipstick or, mascara on something. You kind of hide it. Our offensive line last year was our weakness. We had a bunch of guys, and you guys both know an offensive line is a group that has to work together for a long time to get to know each other, to find that cohesiveness. And we were trying to get there at the end of last year. The addition of Kenyon Drake kind of gave us a little bit of a boost. He helped us in terms of kind of like hiding some of the flaws. And then you go in off season without any opportunity to work, to get to know each other in person, to do different things. I thought it was going to be a train wreck coming in. But what has happened is Kyler Murray has shown with his ability to be elusive that he can make even that ugly pig look cute every now and then. And right now we're still trying to figure it out, but I give those guys a lot of credit up front because they're not, I'm not seeing the total blowouts like I did before, meaning missed assignments, guys just totally flubbing it, men running free. Those are the things I'm not seeing. They're still trying to adjust to Kyler Murray's pace and knowing where he's going to be. And sometimes it does, like I said, when he decides to get out of there, you don't know where he's going, but he's also so quick that he can escape. And it looks like everybody knew what they were doing. But like I said, they're still trying to figure it out themselves. And the one thing I want to see them do is be a little more aggressive in our running game. We still haven't gotten to that point yet. But overall, man, I give them a solid grade for the first half of the season.
Well, you talk about that running game, and don't get my partner Aaron started on Kenyon Drake yet. He's been a huge fan of his work, and I know a lot of fans will see it as a real benefit that, if they don't have Kenyon Drake, we're going to be fine. But Chase Edmonds is no joke. Like he's a legit weapon coming out of the backfield. How has that worked? As far as I know, he's been dinged here or there. He's actually played in 7 games, so it's not like he's missing huge swaths of it. I didn't see today's practice report beyond just the announcement, and it looked like they were being pretty conservative with a lot of DNPs out there for the day. What is the expectation for Drake, and what would you think we'd see from Edmonds if we don't see Drake?
I think Drake was really motivated to try and come back for this past week game because obviously it was against his old team, the Dolphins. And we, as former players, man, anytime we can, if we can get that get back, we'd love to do it. And I know he had that game circled on his calendar, but with the injury he had, I was amazed that he was even questionable. Not just a high ankle sprain, but he actually had torn ligaments in the ankle. Maybe minor, but anytime you start talking about torn ligaments, those are usually multiple week issues. The thing about Edmonds, I think, and a lot of people will get on me about saying this, I think is a great complementary back. Drake is the bell cow, and I don't think we've been using him enough and using his skill set to his full potential to this point. A lot of shotgun read options and stuff like that. That's not his forte. I would much prefer us getting quarterback under center, getting him going downhill a little more, hitting holes in a fast pace. Drake or Edmonds is the exact opposite. He's more like a scat guy. You want to get him out on the edges. We've had some instances where we could have really used Drake in this past week's game against Miami when we needed those short yardage gains, but he wasn't there. We tried Edmonds. It didn't work. But, it's just one of those situations where we have to take what we have for the moment. I love when those guys are back there together because it's almost like having 2 whole parts or 2 half parts equal a whole. So, without Drake being there, we're a little bit at a disadvantage. Our run game will suffer a little bit. We'll see how creative they get to kind of spark that run game to at least help take some of the pressure off of the O-line and give hopefully Kaiir, some play action opportunities to take advantage down the field as well.
Go ahead and switch over to the defensive side. And then, like I said, all those similarities for the two teams. We'll see what do you think, Aaron, and where the approach is going to come from the offensive side for the Bills?
Yeah. So one, I want to start with getting your take because I can't hear people talk about Budda Baker enough. I had tweeted out here this week that he honestly is one of my favorite non-Bills in the league. I love defensive backs. This guy plays at another level that I just love. I think he's going to be one of the best new safeties in the league for years to come. And I do really think that he sets the tone for the entire Cardinals defense right now and the way that he plays. Can you just shed some light into his growth so far with the Cardinals and getting that huge deal and how he's earned that there?
Well, Aaron, in the beginning, a lot of the attention went to Chandler Jones, rightfully so. Chandler's a beast. We lose him early, a few weeks ago. And I think that kind of overshadowed the work that Budda's been doing on the back end of that defense. And I refer to him, he's like the Energizer Bunny of our defense. He goes and goes and goes. And so goes he, so goes. You can tell sometime within the first few snaps of a game, if he's not kind of feeling it, the rest of the guys are kind of a step behind as well. When he's out there flying around, it's like an energy. It's almost like he touches guys and just gives them a little jolt because everybody seems to fly around a little more. And when they're using him properly, I love when Budda, you never know where he's going to be. He could start 12, 15 yards off the ball. Next thing you know, he's filling a hole, 2 yards in the backfield. Like, how the heck did that happen? That's by the design and by that dude just being that dude. He is really, when he signed that contract in the offseason, I thought, I saw a few little spark last year, but I thought, wow, was it really worth that much? And I'd be doggone, man. That dude, as a tight end, I would always want to know where he is just in case I had to cross his path. And he's really, like I said, not only has he earned that money, but he's becoming the leader of this defense, and he will be a true factor in any game we play moving forward.
Yeah, and that defensive backfield, usually I go from the front to the back, but since we started with Budda, let's talk about the defensive backfield because it does have a nice mix of some youth, some veterans on that the defensive backs. It doesn't always gel when you watch the film. There's Patrick Peterson seems to be slipping a little bit in his abilities. Kirkpatrick hasn't quite stuck. I think there's some injuries there that are affecting his ability in coverage. You see some flashes of him still. What is going on in getting all of them to gel? Because you see some coverage sacks pop up on film when they are gelling, but it's not something that's consistent. Is it getting better every week? Are you seeing improvements from this unit as a whole? Is it just too many new parts with the young guys and old guys? What's going on there?
It's a combination of everything. And then the other factor I throw in there, when you lose a Chandler Jones, who not only puts a lot of pressure himself, but he commands double teams too in all instances, and then he frees other guys up. And if you can scheme, that's half the battle right there, putting pressure on quarterbacks. You take Chandler out, now they're able to play straight up in a lot of instances. Then we have to get even more creative in trying to create pressure, bring additional guys. That puts more pressure on your secondary. So we're dealing with a whole combination of lack of guys playing to the top of their ability, scheme sometime, and then minus certain aspects of our defense. So, it all depends. It's like a mixed bag, man. You just never know what you're going to get sometime with our defense. It can be a bend not break. And then other times they come out and they ball out. And, you see what they did. They didn't necessarily shut Seattle down, but we did just enough in that second half where we started to get in Russell, not necessarily in his head, but we started to make him think a little bit, made a couple of mistakes, and we were aggressive and jumped some routes and different things like that. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I wonder sometimes whether Vance is maybe a little too conservative because he doesn't want the big mistakes, but sometimes you just got to let it lay on the ground, man, and let what happens happen. That means getting after it. What we didn't do last week against a second game quarterback, meaning with Tua, we should have threw everything but the kitchen sink at him. We let him come in here. He got comfortable. Next thing you know, it was one of those things we couldn't stop him, and that cost us that game, in my opinion. No, the game plan itself, I have no idea why we decided to pull the reins back on him, whereas, like I said, we threw everything we could at Russell Wilson just a week prior.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you totally. And that's one of my concerns here in this matchup is I do see a lot of similarities in these two teams. And you look at the way the Bills attacked Seattle a week ago, and basically they were saying, hey, look, we think our offense can keep pace scoring, so we're going to throw some pressure looks. We're going to try to get the ball back because we know you're going to score too. But if we can get some crazy plays, get some turnovers, and I see that at times with the Cardinals, and I'm assuming that they're going to see what they did, like you said, against Miami and try to not do that against Josh Allen and say, hey, look, we know Josh Allen's going to score. We're going to throw some stuff at him. I look at this linebacking core here, guys, very athletic, young dudes, can fly around. What's going on there? These are guys that obviously draft Twitter, and Cover One has a lot of experience in draft Twitter. Draft Twitter is crushing on Hassan Reddick, is crushing on Isaiah Simmons. How is their development? What are you seeing out of those guys? And what is their role going to be in stopping Josh Allen in this offense?
The biggest mystery out here right now is what are we going to do with Isaiah Simmons? And at the beginning of the season, obviously with no off-season, no workouts, I was warning everybody. I said, look, this is a young dude coming in, first-round pick. He's not your normal guy. He's not going to just play one position. It's not like you get a defensive lineman, you just stick him here and you say, go get it. This is a guy that we were planning on using like a Swiss Army knife. He's going to be at the safety position. He might be a linebacker covering tight ends. He might be coming off the edges. They had all these things planned for him. And I said, look, slow your roll. Let's let this dude grow into this, because don't throw him out there to the wolves. His head is going to be swimming. He's not going to be up to, to this speed of the game. And in that first game, they had him out there against San Francisco, and he got exposed. So then what do? They totally pulled the reins back. And now it's at a point where I think last week, or the last game we played against Seattle, he had that big interception at the end of the game. He played in 5 snaps. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can find yourself in 5 snaps when dudes get tired. You don't need a break. You'll find your way onto the field. Now, this is our number 1 pick. I'm starting to get a little concerned that he's not picking it up each week in practice, where they're like giving him more and more and more. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. As far as our other Riddick and our other linebacker core, they've had those spots where they balled out. They've had other opportunities or times when they haven't lived up to the bill. But like I said, the biggest mystery for me, and this could be the week, maybe we get Isaiah Simmons out there and he is that Swiss Army knife where you see him all over the place. I'm just, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. I'm waiting to figure out, is this going to be a lost season for him? But we'll see moving forward.
Yeah, it's hard, right, with the young guys, and we're dealing with that a little bit with obviously not a first-round pick, but AJ Epinesa fans frustrated that he's not getting out there and getting the snaps with being a high-round pick, but offenses are going to pick on a guy like Simmons.
Oh, yeah.
He's out there too often, even with his athleticism. But I'm sure Cardinals fans would love to see a guy like that being able to spy a Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I want to move to the front, this line a little bit. I know another guy that's not going to maybe getting a lot of snaps, but I know Bills fans want to hear about him. Jordan Phillips, he had a big impact here in Buffalo. I've been arguing with Bills fans all season long about that. They shouldn't have let it. Everyone thinks they shouldn't have let him go here. I was fine with the Cardinals taking him on. Can you tell Bills fans what you've seen out of the former Buffalo Bill, and is he a welcome addition right now to your guys' defensive line with the problems that you guys had after losing Chandler?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you very rarely do you get a talent like him just out of nowhere, so he's been a pleasant surprise. And what's that old saying? One man's something,
one man's trash, another man's treasure,
And, what I think from our defense, especially, it's like kind of plug and play right now. We're still trying to figure out where everything fits, along with, I keep going back to it, Vance trying to figure out what our identity is in terms of our defense. And that, and sometimes that's something you kind of stumble into. I don't think they really know right now, but he's definitely been a welcome addition. And the good thing is, I look at some of our picks, it's not necessarily about this season. This is about like long-term growth for us. So I think it's going to be one of those things we can look at game by game this year. But all in all, I think what the Cardinals have been doing is what they haven't done in a long time. Bring quality guys in here that fit the system, figure out how it works. Don't just jump the ship as soon as it looks like it doesn't. And like I said, he's been another welcome addition, and I hope he's here for the long haul with us.
Yeah, I think you guys are building the right way, and I'm excited for your future. And now, overall, defensively, you're looking at this Bills offense. They look pretty good here this past week, slumped for 4 weeks or so, but we're still pretty efficient even in some of their slumps. What do you think is the Cardinals' plan of attack to slow down Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, all these weapons that the Bills have, and allow Kyler Murray to outscore them?
I would say shut down the run game, but you guys didn't even run the ball last week, and still,
yes, tell them to shut down the run game, dude.
Yeah. Pete Carroll's still waiting for him to call a run play.
No, and it's crazy. You're like, well, if they're going to be that one-sided, then we definitely going to take it. Man, Josh Allen is a beast, man. And I'm you both have talked about the similarities in our quarterbacks, how they can – isn't it interesting how they're very similar, but then you look at them physically and you're like, how do those two
almost as far the two opposite ends of the spectrum of every quarterback in the NFL.
Couldn't be any further, yeah. But, yeah, they both have the same qualities. And I think, up front, our defense better be ready to not just surround Josh, but tackle him. And that's a tough task, man. And for years and years, I've played against guys like, not against them, but I was on the field with guys like Roethlisberger and different guys. And you're like, that dude is different. That's a different size and a different, and that's what, they're going to have to be ready to come. And when they get pressure on him, better be ready to wrangle him and take him down. None of this stuff because in my opinion, Josh Allen is at his best when he's extending the plays, just like, Roethlisberger, just like some of those other bigger quarterbacks. And he's got an arm that, he can get it down the field. So you're going to put even more pressure on your secondary if you're going to take the risk to try to get after him. You don't get him down. Now those plays are extended. That's when the over-the-top plays happen. So like I said, we're going to have to get after him. He's going to be our main focus, in my opinion. And kind of like what we did with Russell Wilson, get after him in different ways. Just throw some blitzes at him here and there, maybe some zone dogs, different things. You got to get creative because you cannot let him get comfortable back there. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day.
Yep.
So before we get you out of here tonight, Ed, what kind of game are you expecting to see? I think that I've seen anywhere from a 1 to 1.5 point spread. They're expecting a high scoring affair. What are you expecting to see here this Sunday?
Nothing would surprise me in this game. This could be one of those 19 to 17s, or it could be in my prediction. I picked it already earlier a couple times, and I know we like to support our home team, but I try to be real. I try to keep it real. For me, this is one of those games where if we don't shut Josh Allen down, this could be one of those 37-34 or 34-31 Buffalo wins. I haven't seen those big stops from us consistently. And after what you guys did this past week, like I said, without a running game at all, if we don't figure out how to put an end to that passing game, could be a long day for us. I do expect our offense to keep up. Your defense has been on that little roller coaster too. If you guys come in here and make it a track meet, it's going to be one of those close ones at the end. If you guys come here with your defensive game, what's a lot of people come in with it, but when you're facing Kyler Murray, a lot of plans can change because that dude can make you change them. So, but my prediction for this game, like I said, let's go 37-34 Bills, and a close and good one.
No, we're expecting a good game
Sunday.
Well.
Yeah.
So, Ed, once again, tell the people where they can find you, and appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, man, I love being on with you guys. You can catch me on Twitter at Ed Smith Speaks. Same thing with Instagram. And like I said, we do the BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals podcast, and that's BLEAV on that platform. You can catch me on Facebook or go to BLEAV.com. And as well, I do the radio show Easy Sports Talk every Saturday out here on KDUS 1060 AM. Look that up. You can catch us from 10 Mountain Time to 12 noon every Saturday. I appreciate you guys a bunch.
Awesome, man. Hey, good luck this weekend.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, man. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
All right. It's so fun to be able to talk through and guys who cover their teams and understand where the different strengths and weaknesses are, and having a realistic approach to be able to look at, how we're expecting this game to come. And I don't think he's far off. We'll get into our predictions here in a bit, but I think that I will be shocked if we don't see an awful lot of points out in the desert.
I think the way it sets up, it almost has to be, probability wise, it has to be a high scoring game. I think both these quarterbacks cause similar stress, and you saw that graphic that was getting posted around about rushing yards and stuff like that. And it's more than
evading the rush. I think they were evading the rush in the NFL.
And with Kaiir, it's the read option threat that's always there. And so I was looking at the Bills game plan of last week, and I saw a lot of people saying, hey, they need to just roll this out in this super aggressive defensive game plan every week. And I'm watching Arizona Cardinals, and I'm thinking, like, maybe you do that. But if you get too aggressive with some of that read option stuff, man, he's going to kill you on the other end, and he's going to eat that apart. So you still have to attack in aggressive manner, but you still have to play discipline. You have to still contain on the edge. And the same goes for the Cardinals. I don't know that, Russ can do a little bit of stuff with his legs, but he's not Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that they were getting away with against Seattle to come back in that game, and that was kind of a wonky game for the Cardinals. I know a lot of people are hanging the Cardinals hat on that game, but it was pretty wonky when you go back and watch it. And they really had a few
plays at the end, both from Russ and from the Cardinals side.
Yeah, some things went their way together, and that you need that once in a while. But I wouldn't hang my hat necessarily on that one for them. But their defense, I don't think, can play the same way that they played Russ and have the success against Josh Allen. He'll just make too many big plays when he breaks those down. So these two quarterbacks are going to stress these defenses. So I can't see any way that one of these teams isn't putting up 30 points.
Yeah. And Reptile made a good comment here. Name a quarterback that's run well on us under McDermott. And you and I were talking, it's making some people frustrated. The clip that's going around from Good Morning Football, where Schrager and Peter and Kyle Brandt were talking about how Lamar Jackson cut us up last year. No, he didn't. He had his worst game of the year against the Bills. And yes, he did hit a couple big plays for a touchdown. They won. They get credit for that game. But he ran 11 times for 40 yards, and he threw for 143 yards and an interception. He did not have a great game against the Bills. And I think Kyler Murray is a different animal. He's the quickest quarterback I've ever seen. Like, I don't know if he's
elusive. He is just elusive.
I don't know if he's straight line as fast as Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick, but he's the quickest quarterback I've ever seen. It's just unbelievable how quickly he gets up to top speed and gets moving. And I'm excited that it seems like Tremaine Edmonds was back to full speed and full health last week, because they're going to need him in a game like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to need the defensive line to maintain their gaps. he can find he's a little guy and he just gets out of sacks where you think the pocket's collapsing and then he pops out for 9-yard gain, just a smooth 9 yards and slides it out. So you have to have those guys be gap sound, and that's going to be difficult because I do think they're going to try to get a little bit aggressive here. And we saw one thing that we saw, and Eric pointed it out. There was a rush with Trent Murphy and Jerry Hughes, and they pushed the pocket up. But instead of, in the past, we've seen like Trent Murphy, one of the problems I have with him is he continues to fly upfield. They both stopped, forced Russ to come up a little bit, and they were able to get the sack. That's the kind of stuff you need to really keep that pocket tight, not allow him to slip out. And it's going to put a lot of stress again on the defensive backs. And that receiving core is much more well-rounded. This is something you and I talked about off air, how much more well-rounded it is than Seattle. Seattle was super top-heavy, and that scared us. This is more well-rounded, and when he gets out of the pocket, and this was something, we were talking about with that Levi Wallace play, when you're covering for 4 to 5 seconds, that stresses your defense in a way that even if you have good coverage, which we know Taryn isn't always great in coverage, Levi has slip-ups in coverage, but even when you have great coverage, to cover for 4 seconds really stresses your defensive back. So there's going to be big plays throughout this game, and that's going to go both ways. This is going to be, I think, one of the more fun and exciting toxic differential type games that we've seen here in the NFL this year.
So Rep with another great call here. The Bills are undefeated when the sun is shining. So, I mean, it's science. it's
going to be shining in Phoenix, right?
It's going to be 1 o'clock out in the desert. So, it should work out great. We thought that, for a player that you and I had both given a pretty genuine hard time here, that he deserved to take the Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight. And that's our man, AJ Klein. Being able to get to where he had his best game as a Bill thus far, and to be able to find, I'm not sure how sustainable it is. I'm not sure what kind of role we see in the future, but for him to have the game that he had with 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, a forced fumble and a recovered fumble, and that, I'm not going to be silly and assume that, that means he can be the Lorenzo Alexander pass rushing linebacker role, because he's not the same player. But maybe if they found a slightly more efficient usage for him, and that, if we get Matt Milano back here, and I love the pairing with him and Dean Marlowe or him and Saran Neal in that dime look, and Eric can't stop me from calling it the big dime, to be able to look at the way that they're set up is, I think I'm okay if they can find a way to use him that way. So, one, good for AJ Klein to have that game when everybody, including us, were bashing him. But maybe there's a glimmer of hope that we found a way to use him and make use of this role as a third linebacker blitzing.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I think Bills fans need to maybe start getting ready to talk about is, I think we all assume that Matt Milano is just going to go on this 3-game IR and come back out the other side and be healthy and finish the season. And I don't know if that's the case. I think the Bills are hoping that that's the case, and I think that's why they applied this 3-game thing, and let's see what it looks like on the other side. I really don't know. I don't know the extent of this injury, and I don't know if it's safe to assume that we're not going to see a heavy dose of AJ Klein even when Milano comes back again, if they try to roll those reps back in the way they did when they brought Milano back the first time. So I think there's a chance we continue to see quite a bit of AJ Klein. One of the things about this game that I think is also going undervalued here is the coaching staff. AJ, I don't want to take anything away from him, but that the staff themselves believed in AJ. They put him in a position to continue to play. Some of the stuff, it's going to take time for him to really kind of get into this defense halfway through his first season here, playing in real amount of snaps. They've put a lot on his plate. Again, I agree with you. He's not going to be this player probably ever again, but this was his top game. But if he can lift that floor that we saw for the first half of the season, and there was times where it wasn't as bad as fans thought it was. Like Cole Beasley said, it's never as bad as it looks. It's never as good as it looks either. So I think if he can lift that floor, though, and be a reliable guy and try not to be a liability in coverage and things like that, I think they can get by with him as a weak link in this defense. And then if he has a few explosive plays like he had a number of them last week, that's just going to be a benefit. So I think there's a chance, though, that we see him long term. And hopefully this is a turning point for his season where that floor gets raised a little bit. We don't see as big of liability plays. I don't need all the flash plays. I just don't need the liabilities all the time.
Yeah, and I think that, again, the way that they paired it up was really smart. In that, obviously now in today's NFL, there are no 2-down roles anymore because first and second down aren't running play downs anymore.
Right.
So there are very few obvious running downs anymore in the NFL. Ask the Seahawks last week of the teams can just pass on 28 of the first 30 plays or whatever that crazy ratio was the Bills did last week. And that means sometimes you get a guy isolated. So you and I joked the one play AJ Klein was chasing Tyler Lockett down the sideline in a route that scared the crap out of me. And thank God Russell Wilson hit AJ Klein in the back with the football. Those are things that's never going to be his forte. He's never going to be chasing the guy down sideline to sideline. He's not going to be cutting off angles to catch a running back before he can turn the corner. But if you can keep him in the box, running forward, playing aggressive, maybe we can take advantage of that. And then, when we joked about it, they were running Siran Neal at a nickel linebacker dime role, and that was sometimes with Taron Johnson on the other side and a couple reps with Dean Marlowe, where they had 4 safeties on the field at once. And that kind of versatility is interesting to be able to show that. And I want to caution fans who are really excited about Darren Lee coming in here and that he's all of a sudden going to be Matt Milano in or some kind of substitute there. I'm open to the fact that Darren Lee is obviously a better athlete than AJ Klein. He's had some really ugly film. There's a reason he was a free agent. There's a reason he was available. I think he's a depth player who's going to play special teams, and that if we see him out on the field, I don't know that we're going to see a ton of, great contributions. So I think you're right that AJ Klein probably is that guy, and that if we can pair him with Dean Marlowe and Siran Neal, I'm okay with that as a Band-Aid, and we'll all cross our fingers we get Milano back at some point here.
Yeah, and those pairings are super limited, right? Siran Neal had, 7 snaps?
Yeah.
In the game last week, so it's not like they're pulling him out a lot. And I'm still not going to call it the big dime. I'm just going to call it a dime. Siran Neal
you can't stop me from calling 4 safeties the big dime.
He's a cornerback. He's a defensive back. He's the 4th, 5th defensive back. Dean Marlowe's up there too. And I think that either one of those are kind of interchangeable parts. I do like the way they play. They have a more aggressive style.
And Marlowe was at 17 snaps. So not a huge amount, a little bit more than Neal, but still not a ton.
Yeah. And that's kind of his role is ahead of Neal on the depth chart to be that guy in dime looks and 4 cornerback looks, and he plays both, safety and cornerback. So I like that look. I do think that they're more aggressive, and I understand where you're coming from that. And I think you're a little hyperbolic in the linebacker idea, but they do play. They can come up to the line of scrimmage, make tackles. They can play tough. They can play like a safety. And that's a nice piece of versatility, which is what Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier talk about constantly, of guys that are versatile and can play versatile roles. But yeah, Darren Lee's not the guy. And I kind of urge.
Neither is Delton Phillips. Neither is Andre Smith.
No. And the staff clearly has, they have faith in Klein, and they have faith in all these guys that they're going to work through some of the problems that we see as fans. And when that shows up on the broadcast really bad, that the staff sees it. I think some people assume that they don't see the things we see. They see it. They just have faith that these guys are going to get better. And the guys below them on the depth chart are there for a reason. And every once in a while, a guy that's lower on the depth chart is a good player, and he just needs some time to go. I just have seen no proof in the watching Darren Lee, and I don't know anything about Delton Phillips yet because we didn't have a preseason to know if either one of those guys are the guys. But at this point, week 9, and your team's a legitimate top 5 team right now in the NFL, I don't want to mess around too much with, we're still almost a top 5 team with AJ Klein playing the majority of the snaps at linebacker right now this year. He's the weak link, and that's okay right now.
Well, and I will say the only piece of the critically important big dime defense, the only part that I'm happy about is we never saw any dime reps at all. That was never something that the Bills used. So just the fact that between McDermott and Frazier, they're willing to go into areas that are not normally the scheme that we run, knowing that they need to be creative. I like to see that. I think that that's a really interesting look. And whether it's Dean Marlowe and Taron Johnson both at the same time, whether it's Marlowe and Saran Neal or Saran Neal and Taron Johnson, just the fact that in obvious passing downs, they're not slaves to, oh, well, we run nickel, so we have to have AJ Klein out there. I like the fact that they're open to that and willing to pivot away, even though that is more true to what the scheme has been. So, again, it was only maybe 7 to 10 snaps this past game that they had that. But I think that's at least an interesting look to show the willingness. And again, all of this goes by the wayside. If we get Milano back out there, it'll go immediately back to the nickel look for the majority of the time with rotations of Neal, Taron Johnson, Dean Marlowe as that third defender, but that will probably go back to Edmonds and Milano on the field 100% of snaps.
I want those. I want those days.
Please, pretty please. So as we pivot over here, normally when we switch from our friends at Uncle Jumbo's over to West Her and it's time to talk numbers, you have that dream car picked out and you're ready to talk to one of the wonderful salespeople, the 23 dealerships throughout New York State. It's because we're talking about, statistics or DVOA or where it is. But there's some really exciting numbers here that have happened in the past couple of days that we thought should be the reason we talk about it today. For anyone who, if you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't heard, Josh Allen's grandmother passed away over the weekend on Saturday. He found out about that, talked to Coach McDermott, decided he still wanted to play, didn't share that with very many people on the team. Pretty much everyone outside of two coaches in the quarterback room did not know that until after the game. Some wonderful folks over at Bill's Reddit, where we frequent have fans listening to the show, made a suggestion that in order to honor Josh being able to play through that some people maybe want to make a $17 donation to the Oshai's Children's Hospital in Buffalo. And I know Josh talked today that right after the game, he saw there had been almost 100 donations and over $5,000. He's like, wow, that was really meaningful. And I can't believe it. I know you looked right before the show. Tell the folks where that number is at right now.
Yeah, I just refreshed it because they added a ticker. They added a really cool Zubaz button, and now all of the amounts are end in 17. So they're right into this now because this is taking off, and they're currently at $345,862. So that's $17,555 individual donations to Oshai's Children's Hospital. So something that is super cool because for me on a number of ways here, because I think it speaks to Josh, to how much he means to this community and how much the Bills mean to this community. He talked about that a little bit in his press conference today, wanting to be here for that reason. But as somebody that's not from the area and has a lot of friends, most of my friends that follow football aren't from here for years. All I got was video sent to me from Barstool Sports of people going through tables, lighting themselves on fire, all the shenanigans that are associated to Bills Mafia. And they're fun. I'm not going to yell at anyone for doing the fun stuff, whatever. It's fun. But I would try to tell them this whole time that, like, hey, Bills Mafia, that's cool. That's like 1% of the fan base. I've never seen it while I'm out tailgating. I've never seen any of these shenanigans. But what I do see is all this stuff, the 26 shirts, the donations, the random, the money going to Andy Dalton. And now you see it again. And it's so cool to be part of a fan base that has all that fun and wild shenanigans. It gets notoriety for that. But then you're seeing this notoriety on Good Morning Football. You're seeing this notoriety across, the nation, really. And people are sending me text messages now saying, wow, that's a really cool thing that Bills Mafia did. And it's going to such a cool cause. And I think everybody, no matter, even if you hate the Bills, can get down with something like this and see that it's really bringing people together. And in 2020, man, we need people to come together.
All the good news we can.
Yes, we need this good karma. We need this good feelings and vibes. And I just love it. It just goes to show that we argue about the Phillips of the world and trade deadlines of the world. But at the end of the day, this fan base really is a family. And it's really created a cool atmosphere where a small idea like that can just take off and raise over 300. I mean, this is probably going to hit $400,000 here by this week. So unbelievable job by everybody that got involved, donated, and shared. I'm so proud to be part of that.
It's unbelievable. And you said it so well. Our patron saint Del Reed put it so well in his video. Mafia means family.
Right.
It's so unbelievable that happens so organically. This wasn't a bunch of people with a ton of money throwing $1,000 donations out there. It was 17,000 different individuals, each wanting to be a part of something, whether to say thank you or whether just to join along in the fun and to have that feeling of something good happening. And I was listening to our friends, Matt Perino and Ryan Talbert, who host the Shout podcast. They were on, a little while before us tonight. They actually had the VP from O'Shia's on their show talking about just how unbelievable it's been for them. And that, we see this as just some fun, organic, viral moment online. He said, no, this is, game changing for them to be able to have this unexpected pocket of money of what they're going to do. And they're actually planning to sit down with Josh because they want it to go very much in his grandmother's honor and what she would want done with the money. And they have some different options of what that can be. And I thought that was really cool that they're going to have him involved in something to honor. I believe it's Paula, Allen, that is his grandmother's name, and that, something to honor her that she would want. Patricia. Thank you. I appreciate that. To be able to honor her memory and what she would want that money used for. And, people joke about these kind of things like, that they're rich, famous people that don't need those kind of things to impact it. When he says, I don't ever want to leave here and I can't believe how much, I love you guys. This means so much to me. These kind of things matter, and that it showing how much he's appreciated and how much this kind of thing matters, really is some of the difference that they talk about coming to Buffalo and being your best self. When you see some of these guys take the value contracts that they do, to be able to come here and be a part of this, or guys to stay when they have a chance to go elsewhere. I think it's really exciting. And I think that, this may be a stretch to connect that, but Bills Mafia is a reason that people feel that way. And that's exciting. Whereas before we were always having to overpay and beg people, and knowing any rookie contract guy we had that, Nate Clements is just going to go and leave and take more money elsewhere, whoever it might have been over the decades. Now knowing that people want to stay is just a really welcome change.
Absolutely. And it is game changing. I have done work with nonprofits a few times, and raising money's hard. It can be annoying to go out there and constantly asking for money. You expect a certain amount a year. And I'm sure in a 2020 pandemic year, those expected amounts are down across the board for almost all nonprofits. And something like a children's hospital, the need for the money doesn't slow down just because money slows down. So for that amount of money to come in on top of whatever they were expecting for the year, to have an influx like that really is game changing. And it is something that's going to impact directly to lives of kids that need it. And if you are somebody that's a parent, both of us are parents of multiple kids, and you look at your kids and think that, gosh, if they ever ended up at O'Shia's and really needed the type of care that some of the kids there need, you'd hope that the money is there. And so it's a super cool thing. And I'm really happy that they got the influx of money, and that's got to spur energy within that organization. And that comes from a bunch of rowdy football fans in the city, because it's something that Josh cares about. And, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane talked about, it wasn't just the on-field evaluation of Josh Allen, right? They evaluated the human being, Josh Allen, and we've seen everything that he's done here. He's always tried to give back to this hospital, O'Shia's Children's Hospital, and it's something that he truly cares about. So for the fans to rally around something he cares about, I agree with you 100%. That does matter. We saw that when it happened with Andy Dalton. The Dalton family was literally blown away by the amount of money and what that impact was going to be able to do for something that they care about. When you have a cause you care about and people rally behind it, man, there's something special. And I do think that I believe Josh when he says it, that he wants to be here long term. I think he sees the fit on and off the field. I think he sees the organization supports him, and that the fans are behind him 100%, and it does matter to him.
Absolutely. So we appreciate you guys for that portion of it. We just thought it was so important. We normally don't get far outside the X's and O's and the numbers of football. So, but this was just so incredible that we couldn't help but talk about it. So our friends over at West Her, we thought that was the way they'd want to see us get down to numbers as well. So, getting back to the game,
let's talk some other numbers.
I think this game's going to be a lot of fun. I would love to think that all of a sudden we've cracked some defensive code and we're ready to lock them down. But you're not locking down Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald and if Kenyon Drake plays, all those different pieces. They're going to put up points. I hope that we see a really similar structure to what we did with Seattle as far as aggressive approaches, throwing a lot of things at Kyler Murray, because very similar to Russell Wilson, knowing he's going to put up points, knowing that he's going to answer several times, can you steal a possession here or there? And it doesn't have to be 4-0. And we don't need the toxic differential to be 13-5 or anything crazy like that. But you need to win toxic differential. You need to win and get those turnovers to get the ball into your offense's hands, because I think they can put up points on this Arizona defense as well. I actually think Ed's really close to what I expect. I have it 31-28 Buffalo. I think that Buffalo is going to be able to pull this out. And I think it's going to be similar with the Seattle game, where I actually think they're going to be up by a little bit, and that 28 might be coming at the end. And it might be something where it's 31-21 or even 31-18, and Arizona comes back at the end and puts up some points while they're holding on. But I think Buffalo is going to put up points, and I think they're going to pull out a win here.
My score's super close. I had it 31-27 for this. And this one's going to be a tough one, because I do think people are saying Arizona's better than Seattle, and I don't think that's true. I don't. Kyler's good and he's exciting. He's not Russell Wilson yet. No. And Seattle still has more top end players at wide receiver. There's a little bit more there. I do think Arizona's more well-rounded. I don't know that we're going to have flawless possessions across the board against the defense like we saw against Seattle. And the Bills defense played better probably than we've seen them play all year, but they still allowed 30 points on the board, right? So they haven't fixed anything. There is no code yet that's been totally unlocked for them. So they're going to give up points. I do think it's going to come down to possibly a final possession. I think this might be one of those games where we see Allen do the thing that we've seen him do a number of times, where it's a fourth quarter, comeback win, possibly. On the road is tough, so there's a different environment than to the Seattle. I know Vegas is not giving the home field advantage, but there is something to being in your home stadium, sure, knowing your home everything, and that comfort of playing at home, sleeping in your own bed and going to the stadium in the morning. Like, all those things still, in my opinion, matter. So you're still out on the road. Most
of them show it's not the 3-point anymore. It's more 1.5 to 2, sure, which is what the spread is, which basically means they see this as 2 even teams.
Right. And I do think it's probably pretty close to 2 even teams. I could see this one going either way. I'm going to pick the Bills and that they ride a little bit of a winning streak here going into the bye. But more importantly, we talked about it on the post-game show. We're playing with house money here. I think there's a lot of people out there saying that they doubt the Bills. We saw it with Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt saying, I doubt the Bills and they need to win this game for me to not doubt them. I don't care what the media says. I don't need anything right now. None of the results that happen with this game are going to change how I feel about this team as we close out the season here. Do I want the win? Always. Sure. Absolutely. I always want to see a win. But if they lose this game, we're still in a great spot heading into the bye. I'm more concerned with health. I just want to get through this part healthy, get healthy during the bye, and then go on a run from there. I'd love to take a winning streak into the bye, but it's not a need for me. And that's such a weird feeling, man, because last year when we were doing shows, every game we were saying, this one's a must win. We have to win this game. I don't feel that way today talking about this game. I want the win. I don't need it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of factors that come into there. I get it for people who care about the, Schrager and Kyle Brandts of the world, and that they want that respect, and that a lot of people might be watching this game because there's excitement with Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, and that people are trying to say that he's the more up and coming or higher tiered quarterback when they put out quarterback tiers. I get it. I can't stop you from wanting that. I even respect it. I understand that you want people to love Josh like we love Josh, but I don't care. I don't care about that. I care about wins and losses. A game against an NFC opponent with the other games that we have coming up,
the one to drop.
Yeah, the difference between 7-3 and 8-2 is not nothing. I don't mind it, but this game is house money. It's just, this is pure bonus. If we go into the bye 7-3 and healthy, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Of course, I'd love 8-2. 8-2 would be fantastic, because then you're talking about the number one seed is still in play. And I honestly, with where some of the better AFC wildcard teams are, I do want to start targeting that second or third seed. I'd love to stay out of that fourth seed area and getting the best wildcard team, which could be either Baltimore or Pittsburgh. I wouldn't mind getting out of that and getting, the Cleveland, Miami, Las Vegas of the playoff world, or the Colts. So that kind of thing. But how crazy is that we're already talking about playoff positioning and proper seeding? That's just never been our world up to this point. So it's pretty awesome. We got a couple questions here that we'll get into before we wrap up. Jason asking, are you feeling like Moss has solidified his job as the running back who will get the majority of snaps?
No, I don't think so. I think they're going to continue to 50-50-ish. I think it'll be game plan dependent, feed a hot hand every once in a while, but I think you won't see plenty of either. I don't think we're going to be a heavy run team at any point this year, but I think when you see the running backs, it'll still be an even split. They've both done, I think, enough to continue to get the ball and try to get them going.
Yeah, this is 3 straight games where they've almost had exactly the same amount of touches. That's not an accident. So I'm going to assume that continues, short of some obvious hot hand where a guy is just playing out of his mind. I'm glad that Moss is getting 50% of the touches. I think he deserves half the touches. I don't think he deserves 60, 70, 80%. I think he and Singletary are both contributing still.
Yeah.
Mark asking, what goals do you have for the Bills you'd like to see them accomplish coming off the upcoming bye week? Getting healthy. That's all I care. One, I was pleasantly surprised and even not quite ready for Mitch Morse being taken off the concussion protocol today and a full participant in practice. He's an adult. He's a very mature individual. He's intelligent and has talked with his family. He knows how this works. If he feels like he's ready to play football, God bless him, go play football. I was perfectly fine giving him this game and through the bye week before he comes back. But that's what I'm looking for. I want guys to get back healthy. Josh Norman practiced today. A lot of things are trending in the right direction. I know guys in the chat were talking earlier about Trey White, and that if he needs a week off, I don't want to see that against DeAndre Hopkins in this secondary. But I care more about the stretch run than I do about this game. If he needs the 2 weeks there of this week and the bye week to get right for the long term, by all means, sit him down. I'm okay with that, even if I know it's a risk against a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. My number one goal is get healthy.
Absolutely. And it's not going to be just the guys that are showing up on injury reports, although I think John Brown could use a little bit of a rest here. I'm not sure that he's still fully recovered healthy, but you're going to have guys that have taken quite a beating. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, who are going to need treatments a week to get those treatments before. This is really timing up really well to have the bye where it is, to get some of those things right, get your kind of bye week treatments, get a little bit of a rest, step away for a second, self-evaluate. To this point, you're a little over halfway of the season. You get to do a lot of self-evaluating, which I think is probably bigger for the defense right now at this point to do some of that self-evaluation. And then we keep saying it, get it locked in, put it all together, and make a nice run here with health, full self-evaluation, getting everybody that was kind of borderline healthy right, and make a nice run here for the final, month and a half of the season.
Yep. Liam here asking, what surprising player scores a touchdown this week? Andre Roberts' revenge game. This is Andre Roberts' original team where he was drafted and the longest stretch that he had in his career. I want to see our first special teams touchdown in forever. I guess Micah Hyde technically took that onside kick back, but I'd love to see him break one. He's been really close a couple times. He's now got multiple returns, 40, 50, 60 yards. I'd love to see him take one to the house here indoors on a fast track at a place that he spent the first 4 years of his career. So that's my shot in the dark call, is that we're going to see our first Andre Roberts special teams touchdown as our surprising player to score.
If we're taking surprising player to score, I'm going to go with Ryan Bates.
Ooh, tackle eligible. He has run an odd amount of routes.
He's in there a lot.
Actually.
He's in the tackle eligible stuff. And if it happens, I owe Mark Ryan any 26 shirts that he wants if Ryan Bates scores a touchdown. So I'm pulling for them, and I want to buy Mark a t-shirt. So hopefully we get a Ryan Bates touchdown.
We'll do one more here. Bill Basner actually asking, what mix of run do you see for this week? And with the run pass mix that we had, I have long now given up any semblance of idea that we're going to be a balanced offense. This is a passing offense, point blank, period, full stop. They are the heaviest passing offense in the NFL. Technically, after this past week, they had been top 3 consistently with the Chiefs and the Seahawks. After last week, where they opened up at 1.28 of the first 30 plays were passes, they're now the pass heaviest team in the NFL. It is what it is. The Bills are a passing team. Brian Daboll is going to continue to call passes. I wouldn't mind a few more runs mixed in there, but they put up 44 points passing every game. I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't care if we run the ball ever again.
Yeah, it's hard for me still, just from how I've learned football, to watch Arizona and not say, hey, we need more balance, in my opinion, to keep them on their toes. But they did prove me wrong last week that they didn't need balance. I do think Arizona, you might need to have more of it in here. But I don't think that it's going to be particularly balanced. Maybe 70-30. I think it gets closer to 60-40 here this week. I do think the way to attack the Cardinals is to get some run games going. And the Bills still are, even though they're not running a lot, I think they're still middle of the league in rush attempts, and they're 11th right now in explosive runs. So even though they're not getting a lot of production out of the running backs, they're still getting explosive plays from running backs and big plays when they need them. So I think they still got to get it in there. And I do think it's a good way to attack, especially if Arizona's going to get aggressive and try to get some big plays on the ground as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's still so much of me that wants to see balance and the importance of that and setting up play action and everything. And last week
they just throw it out the window.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, the fact that play action was still really effective last week, right, even when they weren't running the ball at all, shows all the numbers nerds will tell you don't actually have to establish the run for play action to be effective. My mind tells me that it has to be a little bit better when you have the threat of an effective running game. But the numbers don't necessarily bear it out. The effectiveness of play action isn't directly tied to how good your running game is.
Yes, some of that's tough because the week before they established the run game. And I think Seattle game planned, like Pete Carroll said.
Pete Carroll certainly made it sound like it.
They game planned for that. So that's tough for me to say that it wasn't somewhat them biting on the game plan of the week before and expecting some run and just never getting it.
Yeah. So I really appreciate everybody here tonight. I actually found one more question that I do want to answer because I think that it's a fun one. And it's Connor asking, do you think the Bills will make it past round 1 of the playoffs? And after beating the Seahawks last week and some of the games now, the Bills right now have played 6 teams that if the season ended right now would all be playoff teams. They're 4-2 in those games. Many people going into last week had Seattle as the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC and also saw Tampa Bay lose, who was the other favorite at the moment. So I think the Bills can beat anyone. Now, do I think they're the best team? No, I think Kansas City is the best team. I think Kansas City is the most likely team to win the Super Bowl. But right now, I feel like the Bills can go on a run. And that, am I predicting they're going to go to the Super Bowl? No, but it's possible. The Bills can go in and win 3 playoff games. That's certainly possible to happen. So I expect them to win the division. I expect them to host a game. I expect them to win a playoff game. And I think they can win multiple playoff games going in here. And I think that's fun that I can say that in full confidence. That's not bravado or exaggeration or just hopeful rose-colored glasses. This Bills team can win playoff games and can beat anyone.
Yeah, I think that whole narrative of that they couldn't beat good teams is a little bit overstated for sure. My expectations that I started the season with wavered for a little bit here this season for sure. I'm right back where I started. 12-win team, win the division, win a playoff game. Those are my expectations. I think that's a successful season for the Buffalo Bills. I think that they can do more than that. There isn't a team that totally scares me. Even Kansas City, I think, if they probably win 6-7 out of 10 times playing against the Bills, but I don't think they win every time playing against the Bills. So if we see them again, I think that there's a chance that the Bills can win. But yeah, Kansas City is the favorite. Outside of that, Baltimore doesn't scare me. Pittsburgh, I think that Bills can beat Pittsburgh. I don't know if they're going to. I think they can. So nobody scares me right now that's left on the schedule. And people talk about how hard the Bills' schedule is coming up, and I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy combined records. It's a matchup league. Let's see how the teams match up when they get there. But nobody right now in the NFL scares me all that much that I don't think the Bills are going to lay an egg on anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Aaron, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah. So first of all, though, I do want to, it's Veterans Day. I want to thank all the veterans out there. Appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the day here with Veterans Day. And you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Also, we have a lot of friends that listen to us from Canada, Remembrance Day. The same approach to appreciate those who have, fought for us and given us the freedoms and the wonderful lives that we have. Appreciate everybody listening tonight. The chat was fantastic as always. Our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's, thank you very much. Thank you to West Her. Thank you for Aaron and Greg Tompsett. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.